Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Wa salatu wa salam ala Rasulillah. Amma ba'd. So inshallah, we did chapter 2 last time. We're going to repeat it again, okay? Because some minds were completely kind of shattered and drained at the end of it. And it's worthwhile repeating this again. Because we actually introduced a new, what I like to call grammatical equation. Because that's what we're essentially doing, is introducing new grammatical equations and applying them. So to get us warmed up, okay, we're going to just I'm just going to do one example, and then I'm going to get some brothers to actually start to do some of it themselves, and then we're going to go into this new one, which was the point about anna again. All right, okay. So we had waladu azar. So remember, this was basically a phrase, okay, and we know it's a mudaf ilay because it doesn't have an al and it doesn't have a tanween, okay, right? It's got a single dhamma. That gives you a clue that it's to do with mudaf ilay, okay. And mudaf ilay is two isms coming together in a relationship. Right? So one example would be like Zayd's book or book of Zayd. So that's a possessive mudaf ilay. So it'd be kitabu Zaydin. Right? Kitabu Zaydin. Not al-kitabu Zaydin, nor kitabun Zaydin. Cannot happen because it has to have a single dhamma. So kitabu Zaydin. So waladu azar, which means Azar's boy. Right? Azar's boy, or the boy of Azar. Alright? Or kitabu Zaydin. Zayd's book, or the book of Zayd. Yeah, this is the mudaf ilay relationship that we're talking about. Okay, all right. And then we had azar. Okay, all right. And can anyone remember what is the grammatical states? Taysir, what are grammatical states?
Sorry, I can't remember the name.
Yeah.
Rafa is the one with Dhamma.
Very good. Yeah. So we have Rafa.
And Jara.
Nasab. But let brother ask, because you'll have your turn, Ali Bhai, and it will be just you, inshallah. And Joe, mashallah, and great. So with this, absolutely right. So with this, waladu would be in a state of?
That is Rafa.
Very good.
Yeah.
And azar would be in a state of?
Nasab.
Okay, so this is the catch, okay? And you made the correct mistake, if you believe it or not, okay? You're right, looking at it, you would say that is going to be in nasab. But actually, this is in jar. Okay, right. The reason it's in jar is because of the ism, the nature of the ism. It's foreign. Now we said that. So I'll explain. So first of all, rafa, nasab, and jar. Normally in jar expresses with a qasra. Normally nasab is a fatha, and normally in rafa it's a dhamma. Okay, that's most cases. 80 to 90% of isms will reflect the rafa in these tashkils. Okay, but there's a 10% that don't. This is one of the 10%, right? And what we call it is a change restriction, which basically means that azar is a particular type of ism, which we will tell you what it is, that can only reflect in two ways. So its rafa is dhamma, its nasab is fatha, but its jar is also fatha. It doesn't go into kasra. There are certain isms like that, okay? And the reason that azar is like that and not zayd, because it would be waladu zaydin with a kasratain. The reason being is that azar is as Zubayr said, is a foreign name.
Yeah.
Other examples can be if it's a female, or certain adjectives will have this and it's a matter of vocabulary of knowing which isms have that.
But do all foreign names will have?
Yes, in principle, yes. So, for example, كما صليت على إبراهيم, ما, not Ibrahimi. Yeah. So Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, not done, Muhammadin. So Muhammad is obviously not change restricted. So kama sallaita ala, which is the preposition that makes the next ism into the jar. So ala Muhammadin, ala Ibrahim, not min, hima.
So is that
So your example.
Is that not considered an Arabic?
So Ibrahim is not an Arabic name. It's a foreign name. Yes. And what the other thing that you'll recognize is that, you know, we said Allah kama sallaita ala Muhammadin.
Yeah.
It's with a tanween, double.
Yes.
Whereas Ibrahima is not Ibrahiman, it's Ibrahima, it has a single. And same you see here, it's a single. So it will also have a single tashkil as well, not a double.
So that would be the case with every single foreign name?
Absolutely. Let's say in principle, yes.
Okay.
In principle, that is the case.
And, sorry. Yeah. No, I'm just going to ask, if we had ism first, like azar, and then something, maybe an
Yes.
adjective,
Yes.
then would you have dhamma on that?
Yes, because remember, it's change restricted, meaning that it's restricted in only one area. So it's rafa is still dhamma, its nasab is still fatha, but its jar, it remains as fatha. It doesn't, it's restricted in that way with a fatha. It doesn't go to a kasra.
If it is a British name, or English name, let's say Peter, Wala do Peter.
Well, the thing is with that, yeah, maybe, Allahu alam. That these are obviously modern things. So in classical, maybe it's a good question actually. I don't know. Maybe, probably, yes.
Would the same principle apply, you know, Dhammatain and Kasrat, Fathatain? The same principle apply to female names?
Yes.
So they would
In general.
In general, okay. And
In general.
And adverbs or adjectives.
In general, and we'll come across their example. But I don't want to labour it too much because you'll go into the exact, because that's a matter of vocabulary. The key is that the principle is that I want to get rid of the confusion because you know the mudaf ilay should be in jar, but it doesn't look like in jar. Limada, why? So I want to remove that confusion that there is a principle of change restriction of certain isms, that they will be restricted in two ways. One is that they will not have a kasr, they'll have a fatha for the jar, and second is that there is no tanween, double tashkil. There's always a single tashkil. This is the thing that now you've understood as a principle, okay? And you've seen it in the durur of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ibrahim, you know, where you can see exactly that, yeah? So that will be your reminder for that change restriction, just that we do in our salah every day, okay? Yeah, so Muhammadin, yeah. So Allahumma salli ala Muhammadin, okay? Yeah. And then it's ala Ibrahim, not man, ala Ibrahima, kama sallaita ala Ibrahima. Yeah, so there you've got that. So that will be your continuous reminder for that. Okay, good. So that was the mudaf ilay. And then we move on to the next sentence, yeah? So here, just for the reminder that we talked about, there were two types of jumla. Ali Bhai, what are the two types of jumla, and what is jumla? No, what is a jumla? So in English, what does that mean? Jumla. Correct. And how many types of sentences do we have in Arabic?
Two.
Very good. And what are the types we have?
Mufid or غير mufid?
Nope. So types of sentences. So jumla, what? Yeah, ismiya and fi'liya. What is ismiya and what is fi'liya? Now that you know this.
Ismiya is more like to start with a noun.
Yes.
And failure to start with the verb.
Very good. MashaAllah. Barakallah fikum. Excellent. Yes, correct. All right. So here, we're actually, if we were to divide, what type of jumla are we dealing with this one? وَكَانَ أَزْرَ لَهُ وَلَدٌ رَشِيدٌ جِدٌ. What are we dealing with here? What type of jumla? Anyone? Ismiyas. Zubair says. Any other votes? Ismiya?
Yeah, ismi.
It is.
Amr?
Because it's fail narkis. Starts with a
It's fi'l naqis. So this is actually a fi'liya, it's jumla fi'liya, because kana is a fi'l naqis, it's a verb.
But don't we take it out and then consider the rest as like a jumla? Because this is like it.
Okay, so what the grammar is saying, this in its complete utter sense is a verb. It's a jumla fi'liya. Walakin, but it modifies an Arabic sentence, yeah? Okay? Okay? Alright, so it's actually a jumla. It's a jumla fi'liya, Zubair, okay? Alright? Okay? So, but what we do is we give it different terminology. So, strictly speaking, it would have a subject and an object, right? But because it's modifying a nominative sentence, minus the kana, yeah, it has a different terminology. But we still treat it as a verbal sentence. Because the khabar of kana is still in nasab, as you would expect the maf'ul bihi of the verb, right? So it's still in nasab. So it still follows the principles of verbs, but it's a special verb. It's a fi'l naqis that modifies a nominative sentence, which this is. Okay? So, if that's the case, it's a fi'liya. So then we say, then we have to have what we call the ism of kana, right? Which would be azr. And how much would it go on? Stop or carry on? Stop. Why? Why does it not carry on for a few more things?
That's khabar. Next one is khabar.
Why? Yeah, you're correct. But why?
Because it's about that ism. The next.
So in meaning, you're right. So one of the things you can do in Arabic, you can work it out from the construct, but you also can work it out from the meaning. So we can look at the general meaning, saying there was azar, belonging to was azar, was a waladun, a rashidun, a righteous boy, a very righteous boy. So belonging to azar, yeah. So you can say, well, if this is the ism, then what is it informing about azar? Is that he belonged to him was a righteous boy. So you work it out from the meaning. That's one way. Can we work it out grammatically without? So if we didn't know the meaning of the words, theoretically you should be able to work that out even without the meaning. So how?
Because lahu, it has dhamma.
Mm-hmm.
If it was, what do you call zabr?
Nope. Rahim, bye. What's Abdurrahim? What's the why grammatically does it stop there? Does it continue?
I think it's about the law, starting with law.
Amr?
Well, I think there is a break in the connection
Why?
because of the la is a harf.
So la is you're getting warm, yes.
And azaru is a noun, so there is a disconnect, and that's where you have to is and the rest
Okay.
is the khabar.
Basically, in essence, you're correct. So the thing is, la is a preposition. It's a harf. Okay. Now, with prepositions are usually connected to verbs. Okay. All right. This is not connected to a verb. This is azar. Azar is a noun. Second of all, it's usually the things that go after it that are connected to the la, not before it, except if it's a verb. And we haven't gone through that yet. But the idea is that there's no connection with a noun followed by a preposition like la or fi or ala. Yeah. So that in itself grammatically must mean there is no connection because there's no ism that precedes a la in a phrase relationship. And remember what we said is that the reason that we know where the break is because there are 15 phrase relations in Arabic, and we learnt 3 already. We learnt the mudaf ilay, so there's clearly no mudaf ilay there because la is not an ism, and it's mudaf ilay is 2 isms, so that can't be. So that rules out that one. The second is the jar majur. Well, obviously the majur comes after the jar, not before. So there you can knock that one out. Okay, and the third one we did was third phrase, and the mawsuf and sifa. Okay, so the mawsuf and the sifa are 2 isms, and la is not an ism, so you can already negate that out. So based on deduction, no phrase relationship on the three that we've learned, therefore break must happen grammatically. Okay, so that's how we work it. So the whole thing over here then becomes the khabar of kana. Okay, all right. And if we
whenever we have to say it, so even la, so it's, even as a preposition, so still we have to justify with all the jar majroor. Or
yes.
majroor,
So here, within that box, you have a jar and a majroor break there. So obviously there's a la, so what follows it must be a majroor. There's got to be. It cannot have. So there's a phrase relation within the khabar of kana. The la and the hu waladun rashidun jiddan is the whole of that is majroor. And then you go within that and break it. Okay. We're not going to do it to 100% because we don't know the full extent of grammar. But what you can see here is waladun rashidun. This is a mawsuf sifa relationship here as an example. Waladun, and how you know it is, one, it is following it exactly. The meaning helps. So Rashid, meaning righteous, is an adjective. It's describing the noun, which is waladun. That's number one that helps you. The fact that both are matching in terms of indefinite. So waladun is definite, right? So Rashidun follows it. The fact that it's masculine, and Rashidun is also masculine, okay? And the fact that they're both in the same grammatical state, which is dhamma. So all of that follows, and the last bit is that this one is singular, and Rashidun is also a singular, okay? So because it matches in everything, we can then say, there must be a mawsuf sifa relationship going on here. So this is describing the waladun.
So it has to follow all the four conditions. That
Correct. Has to. If it doesn't, then we're not dealing with a mawsuf sifa relationship. Okay? So like here, waladu azr cannot be a mawsuf sifa. Both are isms. One by the meaning can give it away. The azr cannot be describing the boy. Second of all is that they are not in the right grammatical state. Yeah, one is in rafa and one is in jar. Okay? So these will be the ways that you can realize just on that. One out of the four is not, therefore can't be mawsuf sifa. Okay?
Is there a rule just looking at words like you said, waladun and rashidun, they're both masculine?
Yeah.
Is there a rule just looking, now we know the meanings
Yeah.
of these.
Yes.
If you don't, just looking at a word, can you tell it's masculine? Or
Yes, and that's for future lessons. So we haven't covered that, but that's something that we will cover. And so in time, you will get to understand what is masculine and what is feminine. So that's to be covered in future. So the key thing is just to get this grasp first, okay? So you understand about the mawsuf sifa, okay?
Is there a rule for in between, like neither masculine, neither feminine?
No. All isms are either masculine or feminine. In English, we have an it. Yeah, so an it in English in Arabic would either be a male or a female. Yeah, so there's no in between. There's no neutral gender. Okay. So if we move on, so again we have a kana statement. Yeah. So we know that must be a fi'l naqis. We've got ismu, hadha al-walad Ibrahimu. So we know that ismu becomes the ism of kana. And what we have to work out is how far it goes. It goes actually up to here because there's a phrase relation between these two. And the phrase relation is a mudaf and a mudaf ilay. We haven't covered the haza bit, but if you just take that out, ismul waladi is actually a phrase relationship. All right? Because it's a mudaf ilay. Right? How do we know that? Because if the ism of kana wasn't, it would have a double tanween. This is the giveaway, that it would cut out there. But because there's one dhamma, you've got to think, why is there one dhamma? That must be a connection. And the one that you've got to be thinking is mudaf ilay. Because it should be either tanween or a definite article. So the fact that it's not kana, wa kana ismun, gives it away to you. Wa kana ismu, there must be a phrase. You just on that alone, you don't even have to look at that and think, there must be something going on here. And so what you actually do find that there is that there's a mudaf ilay, and that's why that's in jar. Okay, and that is
That wasn't the case in the first phrase, isn't it?
Well, azru, remember, is the change restricting. Yeah, Azar is a foreign name. And we said the rule with Azar, because it's a foreign ism, it can't have kasra for jar, it's change restricted, and also it cannot show tanween. Yeah, but you would write, if it was Zayd, you would say Kana Zaydun. You would say that. But because Azar is a foreign name, yeah, that's why you need to know the rule. So that's why it's singular. Okay, this is singular not because of this, because of the phrase relationship with the mudaf ilayh. So that's why it's important that you know what Azar is. good observation.
But I thought Ismu Haza Waladi was the khabar of Kana, and Ibrahima was the Ism of Kana.
Okay, so why?
Because it's the Ism of Kana has to be about the Ism, isn't it?
Yes.
So if Ibrahim is the Ism,
Why is it this? Why? So if you look at the translation, the name of this boy, Kana, was Ibrahim. So even in the meaning will tell you that this is actually the ism, just on the meaning alone. The name of this boy, like the mubtada, or that must be it's an introduction, was, and you inform who was the name of this boy. It was Ibrahim. That's the khabar, informing it. Yeah. So the meaning alone does it, but also grammatically. Why grammatically? Because this would then be a dhamma. It's not. It's a fatha. So that would go along. Remember, it's only change restriction with the qasra, not the dhamma. So it should have been like Azaru is there. So same as Ibrahim would be Ibrahimu, right? And it's not. It's Ibrahima. So grammatically, it has to be khabar because the nasab, because the khabar has to be nasab, and nasab is with a fatha, right? So grammatically as well as meaning would tell you that that's the khabar of Kana. Okay, moving on. And here it is, Amr Bhai. There's Ibrahim here. So he's got an ummah. So this will be your ism. So here you go, your fi'l naqis. Then you have your ismu of Kana. It stops here because you've got a verb after it. So the verb, there's no connection before a noun before a verb. So yaran nas, all that way down here, is the khabar of Kana. So meaning is Ibrahim, Kana, Ibrahim. Ibrahim would, yara, see, an-nas, the people, yasjuduna, prostrating, lil asnam, prostrating to the idols. Okay? So here, grammatically also meaning would tell you that it's the ism, it's the introduction, yeah? And it breaks it because we know there's no phrase relationship, okay? And then with this, would go into this murakkab, which means multiple words together, and break this down because Ibrahim is already sorted. Now we have to break all this down. So within the khabar of Kana, we have a full sentence, right? Inside of it. So here we have the fi'l, and every fi'l must have a fa'il. So the fa'il must follow it, okay? If it doesn't follow it, then it must be, we have to take it out of the verb. Okay, now for Zayd and Qais, this is going to be a bit where you just need to get your head around this. And what I want you to realize is that every verb in the Arabic has a pronoun inside of it, right? So what do I mean by that? So if I just switch this off for the moment, we'll just do a quick reminder about that, because this will really help you out in understanding about verbal sentences, right? So if we're going to say, for example, he did, they did, you did, you as in plural did, I did, and we did. Right? So that's how you would say in English, yeah? All right? Did is the verb. It's added to a personal pronoun. In Arabic, You don't have that, you have just one word. They combine the two. So he did would be fa'ala. Fa'ala. The huwa, which is here, and then you've got the hum, and you've got the, you say anta, yeah, these are all the, and then antum, and then ana, and then nahnu. Right? These are the personal pronouns in Arabic, and then you've got the fa'ala, or the fil, as in the just the verb itself in there. So these are actually combined together. So fa'ala, and then you go to fa'alu. Okay? So fa'alu equals they did. So it's just one word. Right? But you see the verb changes, and this is a pattern that is with all verbs. So if I want to say he sat, so that's jalasa, he sat. If I want to say they sat, it's jalasu. Same pattern.
What do we use for yara, for example?
Let's come to that later. Let's get this first sorted out, okay? So, and here, fa'alta. Fa'alta, and then fa'altum. Sorry, when I'm rushing, it's not my Arabic's not the greatest in writing. And then fa'altu, and then fa'alna. Now, I don't want you necessarily to write all this, because you know why? The beauty of the course we're doing is that actually, because we're repeating it again and again and again, you are going to passively remember this. Because there are lines after lines after lines after lines, and it's better that you remember it in the story, because it's more likely. If some people want to get tables, you can get it from the internet and get it. But you know, the whole idea of the course that we're doing is that it's minimal note taking. If you do take notes, it's just to help you understand it. But we want it so that the course is something that you can just actively practice and read and work it out through repetition. It just becomes part of it, yeah? So don't get bogged down with it. But the principle that you now know is that verbs have a conjugation in it. They have all of these conjugations in it. Every single one, all right? So now we have that in mind. Let's go back to the sentence. And that pattern is same for any of the verbs. So it'd be like for daraba, darabud, darabta, darabtum, yeah? It's every single verb will have this pattern, okay? So, going back to this, yara. So here, it's the same principle, but the thing is, so with this one, it's actually the present tense, all right? I'm not going to go too much, we've already covered it, but basically, fa'ala, past tense, yaf'alu, present tense. And so there's the differentiation between past and present, right? And essentially the thing is that there's a change in the beginning and a change at the end. Fa'ala, daraba, jalasa are very right, but yajlisu, yadribu. So there's a ya, and same for the you. There's a ta that comes. So taf'alu, you are doing. And same if I want to say I'm doing, af'alu. And naf'alu, we are doing. So there's things that actually come before the ra, and there's things that come also afterwards, right? But I don't want you to get too bogged down. Just understand the principle for the moment that this is a verb, and that it has a combination of the verb plus the personal pronoun in it, right? And so what you then do is that the rule is for a verbal sentence, then the fi'l must have a fa'il. You have to find it. The good news is finding it is really easy because it's the next word up. It's not going to be somewhere else. It's got to be the one right next to it, making your job easy. Whereas the khabar can be mixed around, as we know, and the adverbs can be mixed around. But here, you have a little bit of ease that you know the fa'il must follow it. If it doesn't follow it, you take it out from the verb. All right? So if we look at the next one, which is an ism, so is this going to be the fa'il? Yes or no?
Sorry.
Is an-nas, which is an ism, going to be the fa'il or not?
Yes.
So one says yes,
Yes.
one says yes.
No.
Why does Zahid and Qaysar say yes? Yeah, because every answer has to have an explanation, a reasoning.
As you were saying that yara is a fail,
Yes,
so the next word is a file.
we have to look for it. If the next word isn't a fa'il, then you have to take it out from the verb.
But even if you translate it, An-Nas is the doer. So it has to be fa'il.
Subhanallah, I'm really glad you said that, because this is what we're getting at. You might say, why study grammar? It's for this reason, to reduce the confusion, right? Because you're right. I mean, if you don't know grammar, why can't An-Nas be? The people see that they are prostrating to the, and that is a common mistake. It's actually wrong, what you say, but your mistake is actually opens up the beauty of why we need to know grammar, because that's where confusion arises, because you don't know the rules, okay? And then we're learning the rules, and you could translate that as that, and you're right. So that's where you can see that the meaning doesn't necessarily give you the answer. It can be part of it, but you're quite right. Why can't An-Nas be seeing them prostrating to the idols? Why can't it be the people seeing them? That's valid. The reason it's not valid, all right, is An-Nas is in the state of nasab. If it was An-Nasu, you'd be absolutely correct, right? Because the subject is in rafa. The fa'il has to be in rafa grammatically, and because it's not, it cannot be the fa'il, even though it's a noun, even though in the meaning it could make sense. Cannot grammatically, it's not allowed. So you have to look somewhere else. But as I said, the fa'il must always follow the fi'il, and if it's not following it, you don't have to look for it elsewhere or before it. That's the easy bit for you. So then you know, it's a huwa. And so this huwa is actually referring to Ibrahim in the meaning, right? Because it's he. Because yara is the huwa. It's not yaru, which means they. It's yara. So in the context of the whole meaning, so you think who is he? Because the he is the abbreviation of a noun. So which abbreviation is it referring to? It can't refer to the people, because that's plural. People are many. And the only he person is Ibrahim. And it's not Fatima, so it has to be Ibrahim. So, and that then also makes sense, because then you can say Ibrahim would see the people prostrating. So An-Nas is the maf'ul bihi, because it's seeing the people. So the seeing is the verb, the subject is Ibrahim, who is seeing. What is he seeing? The object is the people prostrating to the idols. So that makes meaning sense, and also grammatically as well.
But if you just look at An-Nasa, Yasjuduna lil-Asnam, in those three words, isn't Asnam the object?
The whole thing is the object. So what happens then? Look, this is a very good question. So hold on, let's just, and then we'll get there. So here, this is the maf'ul bihi. But remember, internally, what you have is more breakdown, Ali. So what's here? So in the maf'ul bihi, right, you have what kind of sentence? These three words. Ali.
So one thing, like in English we have one object, but in the Arabic there will be number of.
Forget the meaning. Grammatically, this is going to help you. Here's your fi'l, here's your fa'il, and here's your maf'ul bihi. This whole thing, right? Then each one is in its separate words, except these three words that Qaysar said. So these three words you're going to have to resolve. And you're quite right. Well, what about this business here? What's going on here? So is this whole object, is this an object of the prostrating? And you're right. You know why? Because you have to break down these three words. So what would we break down these three words into? From the principles that we understood. Zubair Bhai. So, it is an ism, but that doesn't tell us what it's breaking down to. It tells us what type of word it is. So what is it? What is these three words now? If you went to...
So Yasjuduna is fail.
No, start with An-Nas. Start with An-Nas. It's a jumla ismiya alibad. MashaAllah. Gold star. So if it's a so these three words is actually a jumla ismiya. But hang on, it's still going to answer yours. Your answer hasn't quite got there yet. Hang on to that, because we still haven't resolved the object here. In a jumla ismiya, there cannot be object. There can only be a what? A mubtada and khabar in a jumla ismiya. So it doesn't resolve your question. We have to resolve the object, because you're right in meaning there's still an object in there. All right, we're going to come to that. But let's break that down. Okay, so this anas has to be the mubtada. Why? Because it doesn't follow on to the verb. Right? There's no connection. So here is a mubtada, and this bit, all of that, is the khabar. Within the khabar, all right, is a jumla fi'liya, yasjuduna. Here, you have here, all right. So if I, take that out. So here, what I would like you to see is that you have the fi'l, which is yasjudu, and the wa is the fa'il. You see it, all right? Lil asnam is now resolving your answer. Within these two words, there's a jumla fi'liya going, and that becomes the object, the asnam, which is what now you understand. But it's an object for this internal verbal sentence, which is part of a bigger sentence of a jumla ismiya. So jumla ismiya, the khabar, is actually a verbal sentence, and that's where the asna is coming as your object.
Okay, sorry, another question.
Yes.
Starting from an-nasa,
Yes.
can we technically call a jumla ismiya, because shouldn't that be an-nasu to be?
Very good. Oh, mashallah, guys, the questions are brilliant. You're right. So the principle is, right, the word or the internal arrangements have to worry about themselves, right? They have to worry about themselves. So that's why we box it. They're the boundaries. So in a way, you're isolating the whole thing, right? So here you have so this bit is the khabar of Kana, and you're right, the khabar of Kana starts with an ism. So that tells you why that's there, because of what it is, right? And the mubtada doesn't necessarily have to be a dhamma, right? Because this is part of a khabar of Kana. It's part of if there was no Kana, nothing like that, you'll be absolutely right. It has to be a dhamma. But because it's part of a khabar of Kana, it has to have the fatha. Okay, that's what's defined it. It's linked into this. All right. Okay. So coming on again. So here we got وَيَرَى النَّاسِ يَعْبَدُونَ الْأَصْنَامَ, meaning that the people would see يَعْبَدُونَ sorry, let me start again. Actually, I don't want to translate it. I want to do the grammar first, because translating will actually give you the answer. So here, what kind of sentence are we dealing with, first of all? Yara, I will say, is we told about yara. What is it? So it's a jumla fi'liya. So where's the fi'l? Yara. So every fi'l must have a fa'il, must follow it. So is an-nasa the fa'il?
Yeah, in this case, yes.
Why?
Because you don't have any other file.
But remember, if you can't find a fa'il, then you take it out from the verb itself. So you're right, this is an ism. But is it the fa'il? Because the fa'il is in what state, Qaisa?
Yeah, this is nasab. It needs to be.
Yeah, so it cannot be the fa'il. So if it cannot be the fa'il, you have to take it out from here. And so it becomes a huwa. And in the context, it's talking about Ibrahim, because he's the only noun that it must be abbreviating to, is Ibrahim. There's no other. Okay, so it would be that Ibrahim, then an-nas goes all the way to the maf'ul, the khabar of Kana, right? Why the khabar of Kana? Because this Kana transmit through the wa, all right? So this becomes a khabar of Kana, and exactly the same thing that you did here, that within the khabar of Kana, there's a jumla ismiya, which is the mubtada, and then this becomes the khabar, and within the khabar there's ya'buduna asnama, and here the ya'buduna again is the fi'l, the fa'il, and the maf'ul bihi, which is al-asnama.
So it's changing its harakat. See
Yeah.
the top one
Yes.
and the bottom one?
Yeah, I like this. MashaAllah, barakallah feekum. This is a very good point. Look, Abdul Rahim saying, look, well, look here, you got ya'buduna asnama and you got yasjuduna lil asnami. So if asnam is the object in this internal verbal sentence, it should be in maf'ul bihi, which is in the state of nasab, right? It's the object. Both in meaning are objects. One is prostrating and one is worshipping. They're worshipping what? Idols. The idols being the object. But, as Abdul Rahim pointed out, one is in kasra, which is in the state of jar, and one is in nasab, which is having a fatha. Why? What is going on here?
Because the lay.
Because the li. So, Abdul Rahim, so here you see this is the interesting thing here, the li. You don't have it here, right? So this li is actually, as we know, is a jar. So this is a jar majroor. And so the interesting information for you is to understand that the minimum components of a verbal sentence is fi'l and fa'il. So yes, so sajada, he prostrated, is a full sentence. It's just one word in Arabic, but it's a full sentence. So there are some verbs that you just don't need an object, like he prostrated or he sat. Jalasa, he sat. You don't have to say what he did, yeah? But you can as an addition. But he sat is a full sentence. Then you can say he sat on a chair. On a chair is what we call a prepositional phrase. It's a muta'alliq. And that's what you see here, yasjuduna lil asnam. It's not directly related to the fi'l. It's coming after. There's a li, there's a preposition before it. So you know, so we actually call this a muta'alliq. In meaning, it's the object. But in grammar, it is a muta'alliq, it's a prepositional phrase, a jar majroor relationship. There is no jar here, it's directly the object of the verb. So it's in the state of nasab. And the sentence, the word has to worry about what's internally before it. Here it's a li. So it has to be, it's overridden. It is the object, but it has to comply with the li. The li is what we call the amil, the governing agent. Some harfs modify the words, and prepositions modify the words into the state of jar with a kasra. And that's what it's doing there, Abdul Rahim, whereas here it's not.
And if we say yasjuduna asnama, would that be correct?
Okay, so that could be correct, and this is where it becomes a vocabulary issue. So when we start later on down the line, we're going to look at vocabulary, and what you'll find is that when you go into an Arabic dictionary, they will have the verb like sajada, or okay, and then they'll have different meanings for sajada, okay? And the way that some of these meanings are differentiated is with the type of preposition that follows it will give it a different sort of meaning. Right? So yes, you do asnama could be possible, right? If it's in the dictionary, vocabulary. Yes, you do lil asnama may have a different stance of the meaning. And this is what we're talking about, method of expressing. We talked about this before. Translation-wise, it's the same thing. Yes, you do asnama, and lil asnam, it will have the same meaning when you read it in English. But in the Arabic, there's a difference. And this is where maybe the balagha that we're trying to get to is how Allah expressed, why did He put it in? And it has a different connotation to it. Right? And that's the deeper things. At the moment, we're just understanding the science. It's a muta'alliq because there's a jar majroor relationship. Here, there is no muta'alliq, jar majroor, so therefore that's why it expresses it straight in nasab. So we're just learning the science, okay?
Do we know that what the subtle differences between those two, not having lay and having lay?
The scholars do, and that's where we want to get to, is where we can read the books of scholars when it comes to Quranic Arabic and see what they say as to why in these ayats it's expressed in this way and in some other ayats it's not. That's where we want to get to. And the thing is, what the beauty is, we'll actually understand what they're saying because we understand the science. And this is what it's all about, is to get to that point. Okay? But now you know the science. Whereas before, you'd just be totally lost. And now you're starting to get this. Okay? All right, inshallah. Now, what I want to do is, this is the bit I want to get to. So, because this is the most important thing I want to cover, actually, because this is all a little bit of revision there, actually. But this revision we'll keep doing, because in that way it will slowly bed into our brains. Yeah. Now,
It looks like a new lesson.
this is what we got to last time. Zubair, I might knock him out for this one. Alhamdulillah. We started. Okay. So this is right. This is the one that I want us to cover, and I'm actually going to make it easy by actually going through it, because it's a new concept. So I'm not going to try and get you to work it out. Okay. I'm going to go step, because this is a really important one. And this is where we had a bit of confusion last time. All right. So we have وَكَانَ إِبْرَاهِيمُ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَصْنَامَ حِجَارَةٌ. Okay. Which basically means Ibrahim would يَعْرِفُ would know أَنَّ that al-asnama, the idols, hijaratun, are stone. Right. That's its basically meaning. Right. Okay. So easy start off, and this is where it's repetition. We know we're doing with a kana statement grammar, so that makes alhamdulillah. We know where we are. Fil naqis. So we know we have to do an ism of kana and a khabar of kana. Okay, and then we have Ibrahimu. It's not tanween. There's no definite article. Foreign name. So that would make sense. That would be the ism of kana. All right. So far, so good. Then we know ya'rifu, and all the way down must be the khabar of kana. So we're all alhamdulillah on the right space. Then we go into ya'rifu. So we know it's a verbal sentence. So we know the rule is that the verbal sentence has a fi'l, and there must be a fa'il that follows it. If there is no fa'il that follows it, it must be within the verb itself. So we say ya'rifu, we know that's a verb, which means he knows. So let's look at the next word. Is it an ism? If it's an ism, is it in the state of rafa? Well, anna is not an ism, and we know that because of just knowledge of the language, that anna is actually a harf. Okay, so we just know that as we know. All right. So anna is a harf, therefore aha. So the fi'l must be ya'rifu, and we must take out a huwa, which becomes the fa'il. Okay, this huwa is an abbreviation to what? In the context, Ibrahim. So it must be referring to Ibrahim. Okay?
And the other thing is ya'rifu, because of the ya, it tells us it's a present tense.
Correct. The ya and the dhamma.
Yeah.
And we're going to get more into familiar. So you're already Zaid, right? You're already knowing science of sarf by just recognition. See? Rather than just me giving you a whole table of it, this is the better way to do it. So you're already recognizing it straight off. There's a pattern there. All right, so ya'rifu, so here we have the fi'l and the fa'. Now ya'rifu knows, he knows. If I just said that in English, he knows, you can say, he knows what? It's got to continue. So this is not, the verbal sentence can't end there. And the reason is that verbs are of two types, transitive and intransitive. All right, intransitive means things like sitting. Okay, he sat. You don't need to say anything else. He sat, completion. Right? He knows, not completion. So it's a transitive verb. It needs an object. You need to refer it to something. So here we know that this must be the maf'ul bihi. This annal asnama hijaratun.
But that would be like if we are referring to something happened in the past, we still can say he knows. We will still describe, as a tense first, would say, so for example, friend went there telling to another person, and then he said, he knows.
In English, yes, but not necessarily. I take the point, but what you have to do now is convert yourself into Arabic minds. Okay, so English is not. It's going to match up on a lot, but not on totally. So, like with the preposition lil asnama, why? You don't need a preposition. You could just say it. Why do you have to have a preposition? That's the Arabic language. And so with the verbs, you're going to have to think in Arabic. Right? And so ya'rifu in Arabic is a transitive. So you couldn't have ya'rifu on its own in the Arabic language. In English, you're right, he knows. But that's the English makeup there. All right? So that's where you convert yourself. So ya'rifu means he knows. We know it's a transitive verb in Arabic. So it must have an object. and that becomes أن الأسنام حجارة, right? This أن الأسنام حجارة, we talked about jumla ismiyas having harfs coming before it. The one that we talked about, which was a verb, was fi'l naqis, kana, before the ismiyah. Now we have also harfs that do it. This could be a wa, yeah, like wa, or it can be an anna or inna. Anna means that, inna means indeed, right? Okay, so the stone is our rock. It could be inna, indeed the stone our rock, right? So these are harfs that come before the sentence, yeah? In here, this is a harf. And all I want you to know is that this is a harf of anna. That's all you need to know, right? And what follows it, okay, is going to be the ism of anna and the khabar of anna. Like we had the ism of kana and the khabar of kana, there is also the same for the anna, the harf that becomes before a jumla ismiya. Alright? So this becomes the ism of anna and this becomes the khabar of anna. What you should notice, interestingly, is that the ism of anna is in fatha.
Yeah.
Now it's not a foreign name. Right? Okay. The reason is that anna is a harf which is an amil, it's a governing agent. It modifies things that come after it. The khabar of kana is in nasab. The ism of anna is also in nasab. This is just a rule you just need to know and remember. Whereas the khabar of anna is in rafa. Whereas the khabar of kana is in nasab, which is expressed as a fatha. Reflected as a fatha. So this is just a rule. Alright? You just know that it's the other way around. And the more we do, you'll just remember what comes after and the ism must be in nasab, so it has to have a fatha. And the khabar must be in rafa because of the anna. Alright? So inna and anna, they are called sisters. So they do the same thing, but they have a different meaning, but grammatically they alter the words after it in the same way.
If we didn't have anna, so would we have al-asnam?
Very good. This is the point we're coming to now. So if we didn't have anna, it would be al-asnamu hijaratun. Right? The idols are stone.
So does it mean that asnam and hijara are in mawsuf sifa?
No. You know why? Because one is indefinite.
Yeah.
There would be definite article there. Remember the rule. So it would have to be al-asnamu al-hijaratu.
Both has to say.
They have to be saying there's one is definite and this one's indefinite. So we know already automatically cannot be mawsul sifa relationship. So that's the way you'd work that one out. Okay. So clearly if there's no phrase relationship, it must be a jumla of some sort because we excluded all the phrase relationship. So this becomes a ism. If it was just on its own, a mubtada and khabar with the anna, ism of anna and the khabar of anna. Right. Now this is the point that we covered last week, Zubaydah, is that the anna has two purposes. One, its meaning, which means that. The other thing is the rule. And this is what I want you to think about. We need to really focus on this. Every ism has a grammatical state. Rafa, nasab and jar. Right? We got that. Okay? And we understand that if we were to divide that, we know out of all the rules, okay, there are 8 examples of rafa for ism. There are 2 examples for the state of jar, and there are 12 examples of the state of nasab. What do I mean by that? Well, for rafa, we know the mubtada in the jumla ismiyah has to be in rafa. That's one example, 1 out of the 8 for the rafa. Number 2 example would be the khabar of the jumla ismiyah would be in the state of rafa. That's number 2. Number 3 would be the ism of kana would be right instead of rafa. Number 4 would be the khabar of anna or inna. Right. Number 5 would be the fa'il of the verb. So already you know 5 already out of the 8. Right? You got that. So most of them you already know of the rafa. For the jar you already know the 2. Because you know it's the jar majrur, the preposition, and the thing that's after it must be in. So lil asnami. So al asnami is in the state of jar, right? So it's a majrur. The other one is the mudaf ilay, yeah, the one that follows like Zayd's book, right? Kitabu Zaydin. So Zayd is the possessor, the mudaf ilay. So that is also in state. They're the only two that can be in kasr. So they're really easy. And the nasabs, we already know a few. We know the maf'ul bihi, the object of the verb must be in the state of nasab. We know that as an example. Number two example, we know the ism of inna or anna is in the state of nasab. We know the khabar of kana is in the state of nasab. So you're already knowing some of these, yeah? Okay, all right? The thing now to appreciate, and we already know this, is that the khabar, right? Let's take the khabar, right? Of a jumla ismiya. It has to be in the state of rafa. But we already know the khabar can be multiple words. Murakkab, right? So there can be more than one word in a particular state, right? So here, like ya'rifu anna al-asnama, we already know that all of that is the khabar of kana. So all of that is in the state of nasab. The whole thing is in the state of nasab. You already see that, right? Now, the interesting thing is that this murakkab, multiple words, yeah, can be for certain things. So for the object, maf'ul bihi of a verb, it can be a murakkab, but guess what? The rule is it can never be a sentence. It can only be a phrase or a single word. An object of a verb in the Arabic language, the rule is it can be a murakkab, but it can never be a sentence. You can't have a sentence. You can have a phrase, but not a sentence. It won't fit in a maf'ul bihi. That is a rule. We just need to know it. So anna, why is that important? Because as somebody, I think Aisa pointed out, or somebody pointed that al-asnamu hijaratun, I think Zubayba, you point, that this is actually a jumla ismiya, right? That is a sentence. The idols are stone. So you could say that Ibrahim knew the idols are stone. That is in English viable, but in Arabic it's not. You have to have an anna, because the sentence can't be it can't fill an object, right? So Ibrahim, subject. Ya'rifu, verb. The object, al-asnama hijaratun, cannot exist in Arabic. It can exist in English. So you can say Ibrahim knows the idols are stone. That works in English. It doesn't work in Arabic. It has to, because a sentence can't fill the object. It cannot fill the position of maf'ul bih. It has to be a phrase if there's more than one word.
Even in English you need that.
You don't have to. As you can say, Ibrahim knows idols are stone. Good work. It's maybe not the most eloquent, but it works grammatically in English. Not that most, I agree with you, but it still can work. In Arabic, it can never work. You have to have an anna. And so in that way, this has two purposes. It means that, and it converts al-asnam hijar into a phrase. Why? Look at the meaning. That the idols are stone is an incomplete sentence. You have to have something about it. You can't say that. It becomes a fact. A fact is not necessarily a full sentence. That the idols are stone is not a full sentence. Because remember, the idea conceptually of a sentence is that it must exhibit the full, complete meaning. That's why we had mufid and ghayru mufid. It doesn't have that. The idols is not complete. You're missing something. Right? So that's what this is. It's a converter. Let's believe it. It's a converter. Anna is a converter as well as meaning that. Right? Now, this is the bit. So let's carry on, because there's another bit that's going to blow your mind. Okay? So I want you to be really ready for this, and then we're going to finish on this one. All right? So hold on to that, and this is the last bit we're going to finish on. All right? So here we're going to go through something really easy. So here we can do it again. Kana, and then you've got ya'rifu, and then this becomes the whole thing. This becomes. Oh, this is the bit. This is the bit I want you to see. This is where we got confused. Right? We understand the converter now. Here, this is an equation we already know. But I want to know if, so now this is a slightly more difficult problem, but with the equation we already know, now you have to apply it like we do now. وَكَانَ يَعْرِفُ أَنَّ الْأَسْنَامَ لَا تَتَكَلَّمُ وَلَا تَسْمَعُ. Don't worry about all of this. That's not my, not the complexity that we're focusing on. It's the kana, right? So I want Zubaybai to break this in the big boxes first. So don't worry about the little boxes. I just want the big box. That's all I want.
So Kana is saying there.
Yeah.
You all know. And then afterwards you say Jumla failure.
So first of all, hold on. Before we do, we always break down the big box into Kana, ism of Kana, and khabar of Kana. We have to do that first. That's number one task. What's
So we have to find out ism.
Yes.
yeah? So for you, Zubayba, where's the ism of Kana?
So that will be Hova.
Very good. You have to extract it out. And the khabar of Kana would be? Very good. So even Kana, which affects a nominative sentence, a jumla ismiya, is still a verb. It's a fi'l naqis. It still has to obey the rules. Every fi'l must have a fa'il after it. If it's not after it, it must be within the kana. And ya'rifu is a verb. It's not a fa'il. So you have to take it out. So this will then say, so we would say, he would, in the meaning, ya'rifu, no. And then you've got this anal asnana, which is the converting structure. All right, very good. So here in the actual khabar of kana, you have a full verbal sentence, right? And because al-asnamu la tatakallamu wa la tasma'u is a sentence, meaning that the idols do not speak, la tatakallamu wa la tasma'u, and nor do they hear, is a full sentence. So that's why you've got the anna, because it has to convert it down to a phrase that the idols do not speak. So that's why that is, because we know the rule. Same again. So kana ya'rifu, again we have to take the huwa out, right? Because ya'rifu is that. And again the same principle again. Annal asnama, that the idols do not tadarru, which means harm, wala tanfa'u, and do not benefit. Right? Okay. Don't go into details of these verbs because we're going to come to that later. Now this is the last one, and this is the bit that we need to be. This is what I want you to. No, it's coming up to it. So kana, it's coming up. These last two we'll do very quickly. So again, kana, huwa, yara annal. So kana yara annal. So he would yara see anna the verb, which is the fly. Flies yajlisu, sitting ala al-asnami, upon the idols, fala tadfu, and they do not defend themselves. Yeah, okay. In here you got converting structure anna, because the flies sitting on the idols, so they is a full sentence, right? Okay. Here, just out of interest, you've got muta'alliq ala al-asnami. Okay, so that is the jar, and this is the majrur al-asnami. Okay, there you can see. Now this is the bit. This is the last sentence that we need to look at, and I want to see any sharp pencils around who can spot what the issue is here. All right, here, and this is I promise you, the last one. I'm going to raise it up because it deserves your last bit of attention and conclusion on, and you'll have really blitzed this issue to its entirety. And then we'll make salah, inshallah. Right. So, the sentence that we're interested in is this one. So, I'm going to let Amr work through this big box, and then we'll go into little boxes. So, Amr, can you tell me what kind of sentence we're dealing here? وَكَانَ يَرَى الْفَأْرَ يَأْكُلُ طَعَامَهُ مَا الْأَسْنَامِ فَلَا تَمْنَعُوا.
Sentence of kana.
So, the sentence, easy. So, kana. So, this is the fi'l naqis.
So huwa is in there.
Very good. So that is the ism of kana. Great.
And then we have khabar of kana.
Very good. So here we go, ism of kana. And now I want you to tackle the murakkab in the khabar of kana, please.
So yara is a fail and it has a file in it.
Because the next word is. Yeah, you're correct.
Ism.
This is ism, but this word is what? Al-fa'ra. Why is it? Why you have to take it out? Why isn't this the? It's no trick question. You're saying it. I just want you to say it out loud so people can hear. Why did you make the huwa out and not this?
Because if it was the ism, it should be in a state of rafa.
Yeah, and it's in a state of?
Nasab.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, absolutely. So the khabar of kana is this bit, right? Yeah, all the way. Okay? Right? Okay. So in the khabar of kana, sorry. Sorry. It's maf'ul bihi. Sorry, I'm going step ahead. So this is maf'ul bihi, right? Okay. So so he would see then this is maf'ul bihi. This whole thing. So now let's break down this maf'ul bihi, because the rule is what? The maf'ul bihi, if it's multiple words, should be in either one word or a murakkab, which is only a phrase and not a right. Okay, so help me with this. So what are we dealing with here? Al-fa'ra, so the mice or the mouse, yaqulu, eats the food of the al-asna, of the idols, so they do not stop. Is this a sentence or a phrase? It's a sentence. So hang on, what have we been talking about then? What's gone on here? Why isn't there anna? There was anna for everything, and now there's no anna. This is a full sentence, right? Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Good. I just wanted to make, because this was a confusion last time. Okay. What's happening here? Now this is a bit I'll explain, because this is new. Right? Here, what you actually have is actually a phrase. This this whole box, maf'ul bihi, is a phrase. Why? Because al-fa'ra and ya'kulu, all that, is a phrase relationship, not a sentence. This whole thing is not a sentence in the grammatical Arabic, right? This is where it's going to hopefully blow your mind in a good sense, because you'll start to appreciate the Quran when you get to that level. Is that this is a subtlety here. Al-fa'ra means the mouse. Ya'kulu ta'am al-asnam is actually describing the mouse. Here, at the verb, it's actually saying what they were doing, which is that they were sitting, right? That's a fact. They sit. That's what flies do. Here, the mouse doesn't all the time eat. Sometimes they eat, sometimes they don't. Flies sit. Wherever you see a fly, it's always sitting on something, right? So here the subtlety is that this is actually a circumstantial, right? It's like saying, Zayd came to me while riding. So it doesn't mean Zayd's a rider. It doesn't mean Zayd's a rider. It so happens when he was coming to me, he was riding. This is the same thing. That when he saw the flies, it so happens that they were eating some food of those idols. Sometimes they would if there's food, sometimes they wouldn't, because there's not always food on the idols, right? So it's actually a subtle point, right? Saying that yes, that actually what we're dealing with is a phrase relationship. And we haven't covered that phrase yet. But what I want you to appreciate is that, hang on, what's the rule? Haven't we broken the rule? You haven't broken the rule because this is a different meaning, a different emphasis. All right? Okay? It's a different meaning, it's a different emphasis. And it could have anna, right? But then it's stating a fact that basically mouse eat food on idols, which is not actually a fact. It so happens there's food on the idols. Mice don't do that. You know, they don't, that's not their role in life, is to eat food on idols. It so happens that this mouse was eating food, and that's what Ibrahim was seeing at the time. So it becomes a circumstantial thing. Whereas the other ones, so when it says, it would recognize that Asnam do not la tadurru وَلَا تَنْفُوا, that they do not benefit or they cause harm, is actually a fact. It's not something circumstantial, meaning that they're only doing it now. All idols do not benefit, all idols do not cause harm. And like all idols do not speak, all idols do not hear. So there the anna is quite appropriate because it's stating a fact, continuous fact. Whereas for a mouse, it's not a fact that all mice sit on idols eating food. It so happens that this mouse was. And that's why it doesn't have an anna. So it's a subtle difference, but it has a different meaning. If you translate that in English, it'll have exactly the same meaning. So to you to understand that subtlety, you'd have to actually put a few more words in the English to make this difference, which translations in general would miss out on, but you would spot in the grammar.
In order for us to appreciate that final
Yes.
point,
Yes.
we have to understand the meaning, isn't it?
No.
Vocabulary, I think.
Look, let's not go that deep. Let's just appreciate the point, because you're talking about something, inshallah, that it's like, you're learning to sit up, or drive, for the steering gear, but you're not going to talk about 3-point turns. You think that's unimaginable. How can I do a 3 or reverse into a car that's, or park a car there when you can't even know where the gear stick is? You'll get there, and then at that point, aha. So at the moment, you have to just imagine that you need to appreciate that I'm learning the steering and gear stick, but I can also see there's a 3-point turn and a parking in a parking slot. This is what this is, the subtlety. You will get there, but the point is that you can see that it's possible, and that you can see there's a subtlety in the language that gives it a different sort of meaning, and that's what we're going to end on. But you know what? This is going to keep repeating. So you got it for about 20-30%. We'll keep going, and we'll call it there. Subhanaka wa bihamdik, ashhadu an la ilaha anta, wa astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.